some of you may not know who I am. I know the majority of people out here, but in case you don't know who I am, I'm Roger. I'm the youngest of the 6 kids. You might recognize me by the name my dad used to call me, the favorite. Glad that went over well. Okay, so I thought I'd share some memories and thoughts about my dad. You know, I'm the youngest of 6, and there's a 13-year gap between myself and my sister Maria. So my memories of my dad are a little different from those of theirs. I heard we went to Sequoia and went through the tree. I saw a picture. It was about a long time ago. It was about that big. But that's probably all I can remember. What I mostly remember about my dad was every Sunday he made a point of taking my sister, Sally, and myself to go do something. Whether it be to the movies, to an amusement park, to just go have brunch. He enjoyed doing those things with us. You know, if it was raining, he made sure that we were going to go to the movies. And we always did the same thing before we went. Sally will probably remember. We'd get in the car, drive to the food court down the street. My mom would shove as much garbage into her purse as possible so we'd sneak it in, and then sit in the movies, and if we could, we'd try to see 2 for the price of 1. But those are the things that I remember most about my dad, and the point I wanted to make the most about him was that he was a really good man. You know, the term a good man is something I think a lot of people just throw around lightly. It's something that should be used for admiration and respect only. And I think anybody that knew my dad knew that that was more than fitting for him. Now, don't get me wrong, he had his faults. Like the pastor said, you drove in the car with him, and you knew he had his faults. He once got a ticket for stopping at a green light. Who does that? Okay? So you knew that he had his faults, but he loved us, and those were probably about the only few. The only other fault I can probably think of my dad is that sometimes my dad would think with his heart and not always with his head. And sometimes when he would make those decisions with his heart, it would come back to bite him, but it didn't keep him from trying to help others in need in their time of need. And so that's the only really big fault I can find in my dad, and I think it's a pretty good one to have. Along with his trust and generosity towards other people came a sincere thankfulness. Like Pastor Mitchell said, my dad thanked God every day that he was alive, and he loved Thanksgiving. He loved those type of things, and thought it was amazing that this country could spend one day together to just celebrate and give thanks to God for all the blessings that he had. And he truly appreciated it because of where he came from. Now, for obvious reasons, I struggled with what I was going to come up here and talk about today, and just so many things came to my head to try to figure out what to talk about, and the main point was just don't make eye contact. So, you know, and I tried to figure out how am I going to sum up how my dad feels, you know, how I feel about my dad and what he meant to us in a 5-minute speech, and I just realized, you know, it can't be done. You know? I'm going to talk about the obvious things. He was kind, he was generous, he was loving, he was all those things, and I didn't want it to sound cliche. But then I thought about it, and I realized my dad was those things. You knew him, he was that way. These weren't just phrases that we used about him. He was a really good guy. Now, when I came up here, you know, I made the joke that, you know, I was his favorite. I still think I am. Nancy might disagree with me. Okay. So I figured I'd tell a little story about my dad, how he answered that question to me one time without really realizing it. You know. So, you know, we grew up down the street here in Bombardier House, and after my mom had passed, it was just me and Sally at the house, and we would have long conversations with my dad. And if you know me, which most of you do, you know I can be, excuse me, Pastor, a bit of a smart ass. So I figured I was going to put my dad on the spot that day and ask him a tough question, because, like I said, I'm the youngest of 6. There's a 13-year gap between me and Maria. And, you know, when you look back at it, you realize he had 5 kids. My mom was 42 when she had me. You know, he wasn't it was pretty obvious for me to figure out that I was a bit of a surprise to my parents, you know. So I figured I'd ask my dad and put him on the spot about that. So I asked him, I go, you know, Dad, did you and Mom plan on me? And I thought, okay, I'm going to get him good here. And he's going to stumble, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to just really give him a hard time. And he just stopped, and he looked at me instantly, and he just said, I love all you kids. Totally avoid the question. So, you know, when you're going to answer, how you answer back to that? So I said, okay, so we just went on. But, you know, now looking back at that, I start to realize that you know, I've said that story more than a few times to people. I always get a good laugh at it, and I just think it's funny. But when my dad was going through a pretty emotional time last week with Gabe, reminded us how he really wanted a big family, and it was what he always had desired. And I know that, you know, after he married my mom, and then when Maria came around, he had a special part in his heart for Maria, and only her. Gabe came, he split it in half. And why for Gabe, I don't know. Gladys, Nancy, Sammy, and myself, he divided it equally. 6 equal parts. None better than the same, none better than the other, none more special than the other. He loved all his kids, and that's why my dad was a good man.